Chapter 1. Why Your Emotions Are Lying to You.
Let's start with something most people never want to hear. You can't trust your feelings. I know that goes against everything you've been told. Follow your heart. Trust your gut. If it feels right, do it. We've built an entire culture around the idea that emotions are sacred, that they're always valid, that they're telling you some deep truth about reality. They're not. Your emotions are liars, and until you accept that, you'll never be free. Here's what's actually happening inside your brain right now. Every feeling you experience, every spike of anger, every wave of anxiety, every moment of fear is a chemical reaction. That's it. Cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine. These chemicals flood your system and create sensations that your brain then interprets as feelings. And here's the critical part. These systems were designed for survival, not success. Your ancestors needed fear to run from predators. They needed anger to fight off threats. They needed anxiety to stay vigilant in a world where danger was everywhere. That emotional programming kept them alive long enough to reproduce. Mission accomplished. But you're not running from saber-toothed tigers anymore. You're sitting in meetings. You're having difficult conversations. You're building businesses and relationships and careers. And that same prehistoric emotional system is actively sabotaging you. Think about the last time you got angry at work. Maybe someone questioned your idea in a meeting. Maybe a colleague took credit for your work. Your heart started racing. Your face got hot. You felt that surge of rage telling you to defend yourself, to attack back, to make them pay. That's your amygdala, the ancient part of your brain, interpreting criticism as a physical threat. It's responding the same way it would if someone threw a rock at your head. But nobody threw a rock. Someone just said words. Yet your body reacted like you were in mortal danger. Your emotions are treating every challenge like a life or death situation when it's not. And it gets worse. Your brain has something called a negativity bias. Scientists have studied this extensively. Your brain registers negative experiences at roughly 5 times the intensity of positive ones. 5 to 1. That means you're biologically programmed to catastrophize, to assume the worst, to see threats that don't exist. One person criticizes you and 5 people praise you, but you'll obsess over the criticism. You'll replay it in your mind. You'll build entire narratives around it. Why? Because your brain is scanning for danger, and it's finding it everywhere, even when it's not there. This is why you spiral. This is why you overreact. This is why you lie awake at 3 a.m., replaying a conversation from 6 months ago. Your emotions aren't giving you accurate information. They're giving you exaggerated, distorted, survival-based interpretations of reality. And here's the worst part. Every time you react emotionally, you're reinforcing the pattern. Your brain works on a principle called neuroplasticity. The pathways you use most become the pathways you use most easily. Think of it like walking through a forest. The first time you walk a new trail, you have to push through brush and branches. It's hard. But walk that same trail 100 times and it becomes a clear path. That's what's happening in your brain with emotional reactions. Every time you snap at someone, you're deepening the neural pathway that says, when I'm frustrated, I lash out. Every time you panic when something goes wrong, you're carving a channel that says, when there's uncertainty, I collapse. Every time you seek validation from others, you're building a highway that says, my worth comes from external approval. You are literally training yourself to be weaker with every emotional reaction. But here's the powerful part, the part most people never realize. If you can carve pathways through emotional reaction, you can carve new pathways through emotional detachment. That's what this entire book is about. Not suppressing your emotions, not pretending you don't feel, but recognizing that feelings are suggestions, not commands. They're data points. They're signals, but they don't get to make your decisions. Think about the most powerful person you've ever met. Maybe it's a CEO. Maybe it's a mentor. Maybe it's someone in your family. What did they have in common? They didn't react. They paused. They thought. They chose their response. When someone insulted them, they didn't explode. When something went wrong, they didn't panic. When they were afraid, they didn't run. They felt all of it, every bit of anger, fear, and frustration. But they didn't let those feelings drive the car. That's emotional detachment, and it's not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or without. It's a skill, and like any skill, you can build it through practice. Starting today, I want you to practice something simple. Label your emotions. The next time you feel something intense, anger, fear, anxiety, whatever, don't identify with it. Don't say, I am angry. Instead say, I notice that I'm feeling anger. Do you see the difference? One makes you the emotion, the other makes you the observer of the emotion. I notice fear. I notice anxiety. I notice frustration. This tiny shift creates space between the feeling and your response. And in that space lives your power. Because here's what you need to understand. You are not your emotions. You are the consciousness that experiences emotions. You are the awareness behind the feeling. And when you realize that, truly realize it, you become untouchable. Your emotions can scream, they can rage, they can beg, but they can't control you. Not anymore. That's the key. Your emotions are ancient tools designed for a world that no longer exists. They're not bad. They're not wrong. They're just outdated. And the moment you stop treating them like facts and start treating them like feelings, you take back control. You don't need to fight your emotions. You don't need to suppress them. You just need to stop obeying them blindly. Feel them fully. Acknowledge them completely. Then choose your action based on who you want to be, not what you happen to feel in the moment. That's freedom. And it all starts with understanding this foundational truth. Your emotions are not the enemy, but they're also not the authority. They're passengers in the car. You're the driver, and it's time you started acting like it.
You've just learned why your emotions lie to you. Now you're ready for the next level, because it's not enough to understand that emotions mislead. You need to know what powerful people do instead. You need to learn the difference between reacting like everyone else and responding like a master. Chapter 2. The power players don't react, they respond.
There's a moment that separates the powerful from the powerless. It happens in meetings, in arguments, in negotiations, in every high-stakes interaction you'll ever have. It's the moment between stimulus and response. Most people don't even know that moment exists. Something happens, someone insults them, a deal falls through, they get criticized, and they react instantly. No gap, no pause, no thought, just pure emotional reflex. And in that instant, they lose. The power players, they live in that gap. Let me show you what I mean. Think about the last time you watched a negotiation, a debate, or even a tense conversation. Who controlled the room? Was it the person who fired back immediately, who raised their voice, who let their emotions spill everywhere? Or was it the person who paused, who took a breath, who responded with surgical precision? You already know the answer. There's a massive difference between reacting and responding, and it determines who controls every interaction you'll ever have. Reacting is automatic, it's emotional, it's weak. When you react, you're being controlled by external circumstances. Someone pushes your button and you perform exactly as programmed. They said something, so you exploded. They criticized you, so you defended. They ignored you, so you chased. You became predictable. And predictable people are easy to manipulate. Responding is different. Responding is deliberate, it's strategic, it's powerful. When you respond, you're operating from a place of choice. You've felt the emotion, the anger, the hurt, the frustration, but you've inserted a pause between feeling and action. In that pause, your prefrontal cortex comes online, the rational part of your brain, the part that thinks, plans, and executes with precision. That pause is everything. I'm going to give you a tool right now that will change your life if you use it. It's called the 10-second rule, and it's absurdly simple. When something triggers you, when someone says something that makes you want to snap back, when you get an email that makes your blood boil, when something happens that makes you want to react immediately, count to 10 before you do anything. Don't speak, don't type, don't act, just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In those 10 seconds, something remarkable happens. Your amygdala, the emotional, reactive part of your brain, starts to calm down. The cortisol spike begins to level out, and your prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, comes back online.
You move from reaction to response.
You have a choice. That's what those 10 seconds give you. Choice. Most people never experience choice in their emotional moments. They're on autopilot. Someone presses the button, they perform the programmed response. But with the 10-second rule, you interrupt the automation. You insert consciousness where there was only reflex. That's reaction. And if you follow that impulse, you lose. You look defensive. You look insecure. You look like someone who can't handle criticism. But if you pause, if you take those 10 seconds, something different happens. You notice the defensiveness. You feel it. You acknowledge it. Then you choose a different response. That's an interesting point. Walk me through your thinking. 5 words. Calm, curious, powerful. You just turned a potential conflict into a conversation. You maintained control. You demonstrated confidence. And you did it all because you responded instead of reacted. That's the key. The person who pauses, who thinks, who chooses their words, that person always wins. Now let me tell you about the most underused weapon in human interaction, silence. Most people are terrified of silence. When there's a pause in conversation, they rush to fill it. When someone attacks them, they immediately defend. When someone baits them, they take the bait. Powerful people do the opposite. Silence is a weapon, and most people are too afraid to use it. Think about what silence does. When someone insults you and you say nothing, they're left holding their words. The tension sits with them, not you. When someone tries to provoke you and you give them nothing, no reaction, no emotion, no engagement, you've just communicated something profound. You don't control me. Silence says, I'm so secure in myself that I don't need to defend against your noise. Silence says, your words have no power here. Silence says, I'm in control and you're not. But here's what most people do instead. Someone criticizes them and they immediately launch into an explanation. Someone questions their decision and they spend 15 minutes justifying it. Someone challenges them and they engage in a back and forth that goes nowhere. Every word you speak in defense is power you're giving away. I want you to practice something this week. When someone says something designed to get a reaction from you, a passive-aggressive comment, a subtle insult, a challenge to your authority, say nothing. Just look at them. Let the silence hang. Watch what happens. 9 times out of 10, they'll backtrack. They'll soften. They'll fill the silence themselves with explanations and justifications. Because silence makes people uncomfortable, and the person who's comfortable in that discomfort controls the dynamic. You don't need to fill every silence. You don't need to defend every criticism. You don't need to engage with every provocation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. That's emotional detachment. It's not about having no emotions. It's about having emotions and choosing not to let them dictate your behavior. Feel the anger. Feel the hurt. Feel the impulse to strike back. Then take 10 seconds. Then respond or don't respond with intention. Here's what this looks like in practice. Someone insults you in a text message. Your reaction is to type a furious response immediately, but you pause. You count to 10. You realize engaging with this gives them exactly what they want, your emotional energy. So you don't respond at all. You delete the message and move on with your day. That's power. Your boss criticizes your work in front of the team. Your reaction is to defend yourself, to explain all the reasons why it's not your fault. But you pause, you count to 10. You respond, I appreciate the feedback. Let me review it and get back to you with a plan. That's power. Your partner says something hurtful during an argument. Your reaction is to say something equally hurtful back. But you pause, you count to 10. You say, I need a minute, let's come back to this when we're both calmer. That's power. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about inserting choice between emotion and action. Every master of negotiation, every successful leader, every person you've ever looked at and thought, how are they so calm? They're all doing the same thing. They're living in the gap between stimulus and response. They're choosing their actions instead of being controlled by their reactions. And you can do this too. Starting today. The 10-second rule. Practice it. Master it. Make it automatic. Because that tiny pause, those 10 seconds, will save your career, your relationships, and your reputation more times than you can count. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need perfect circumstances to choose your response. You just need 10 seconds and the discipline to use them. That's the difference between reacting and responding. That's the difference between being controlled and being in control.
You've learned to pause. You've learned to respond instead of react. You've learned that silence is strength. Now we need to address the thing that undermines all of this, the constant need to explain yourself to people who don't matter. Chapter 3. Stop proving and start doing.
Here's how you know you haven't mastered emotional detachment yet. You can't stop explaining yourself. Someone questions your decision and you launch into a 15-minute justification. Someone doubts your capability and you list every credential you've ever earned. Someone raises an eyebrow at your lifestyle and you spend an hour defending your choices. Stop. Every word you speak in defense is a confession. You're confessing that you need their approval. You're confessing that their opinion matters more than your own conviction. You're confessing that you haven't detached. Let me tell you something that will sting. Insecure people explain. Confident people execute. Think about the most successful person you know personally, not someone you follow on social media. Someone you actually know. How much time do they spend justifying their decisions to you? How often do they defend their choices when someone questions them? Almost never, right? That's not because they're arrogant. It's because they have internalized a truth that most people never learn. Your self-worth cannot be dependent on the approval of people who aren't living your life. When you feel that urge to justify, that burning need to explain why you're doing what you're doing, why you're capable, why your choice makes sense, that's not confidence speaking. That's your ego. And your ego is screaming for validation. That's the key. Your ego wants everyone to understand you, to approve of you, to validate your existence. But emotional detachment means recognizing that you don't need that. You really don't. Someone thinks your business idea is stupid? Okay, build it anyway. Someone thinks you're wasting your time on that project? Fine, finish it anyway. Someone doesn't believe you can do it? Good. Prove them wrong through results, not rhetoric. You don't need their permission. You never did. Let me show you what over-explaining actually is. It's not communication. It's not being thorough. It's not being helpful. Over-explaining is emotional leakage. You're hemorrhaging power with every unnecessary word. Watch what happens in any meeting, any negotiation, any high-stakes conversation. Who speaks the most? Usually the person with the least power. They fill every silence. They add unnecessary details. They justify every statement before anyone even challenges it. Listen to this example.
Well, what I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but based on my experience, which isn't that extensive, but I've noticed, is that we should probably consider, if everyone's okay with it, moving forward with option A. But I'm totally open to other ideas. I just thought, it might make sense. But again, that's just my opinion.
That's weakness disguised as humility. Now listen to how powerful people speak.
We are moving forward with option A.
7 words. No justification, no hedging, no plea for approval. A statement of fact, a decision made. If someone wants more information, they'll ask. If someone disagrees, they'll speak up. But the powerful person doesn't preemptively defend themselves against challenges that haven't even been made yet. That's the difference. One person is seeking permission, the other is making a declaration. Every time you over-explain, you're subconsciously admitting you need permission. You're treating other people like gatekeepers to your own life. And they're not. They never were. Stop asking. Start claiming. Here's what this looks like in practice. Someone asks you why you're starting a business. Weak response. Well, I've always been really interested in entrepreneurship, and I've taken some courses, and I think I have some good ideas, and I know it's risky, but I've done a lot of research, and I really think it could work, I've been planning it for months, and I've talked to some people who think it's a good idea, so I thought I'd give it a shot. Strong response. I'm starting a business. Notice what's not there? No justification, no credentials listed, no defensive preempting of criticism, just a statement of fact. If they want to know more, they'll ask specific questions, and you can answer those. But you don't lead with a dissertation defending your right to make your own choices. You have a choice. You can spend your energy explaining why you're capable, or you can spend that energy proving it. One makes you look weak. The other makes you undeniable. The most respected people in any room speak the least. Have you noticed that? They don't fill silence with justifications. They don't use 3 sentences when 1 word will do. They state. They decide. They move on. Why? Because their confidence comes from internal validation, not external approval. Think about what you're really doing when you over-explain. You're outsourcing your self-worth. You're essentially saying, I'll feel good about this decision once you approve of it. I'll feel confident once you validate me. I'll feel worthy once you understand. That's giving away all your power. You're making your emotional state dependent on other people's opinions. And other people's opinions are unreliable, uninformed, irrelevant. They're unreliable because people change their minds constantly. They're uninformed because they don't know your full situation, your goals, your context. And they're irrelevant because at the end of your life, you're the one who has to live with your choices, not them. Emotional detachment means building your self-worth from the inside out. It means your sense of capability, your sense of purpose, your sense of worthiness. All of that comes from you, from your values, from your vision, from your commitment to yourself, not from whether Janet from accounting thinks your idea is good. Let me give you a practical exercise. This week, practice 1-sentence answers. Someone asks why you're doing something. Give them 1 sentence, then stop talking. Let the silence hang. Watch what happens. Why are you going back to school? To develop new skills. Why did you turn down that job offer? It wasn't the right fit. Why are you moving to a new city? New opportunities. 1 sentence, then silence. You don't owe anyone a TED Talk about your life choices. And here's what's fascinating. Most of the time, they won't even push back. Because your calm, confident brevity communicates something powerful. I'm secure in this decision. But let's say they do push back. Let's say they question you, challenge you, or express doubt. You still don't need to defend. You can acknowledge their concern and move on. I just don't think that's a good idea. I appreciate your perspective. I'm moving forward with it. Not, well, actually, if you understood the full context and all the research I've done, you'd see that it actually makes perfect sense because, no, you acknowledged them. You held your position. You moved on. That's emotional detachment. Here's the ultimate truth. Your results will always speak louder than your explanations ever will. People who achieve don't talk about achieving. They don't post long manifestos about their goals. They don't spend hours explaining their vision to anyone who'll listen. They just do the work. They show up. They execute. And eventually, the results speak for themselves. Nobody asks Elon Musk to justify SpaceX anymore. The rockets fly. Nobody questions whether someone can build a billion-dollar company after they've built one. The results answered every doubt. The person who spends an hour explaining why they're capable could have spent that hour getting one step closer to proving it. That's the opportunity cost of constant justification. Every minute you spend defending is a minute you're not spending building. Emotional detachment redirects that defensive energy into productive action. Instead of managing everyone's perception of you, you're creating outcomes that make perception irrelevant. You don't need to convince anyone. You need to execute. You don't need to explain your potential. You need to realize it. You don't need validation before you start. You need results after you finish. That's the shift. From "let me tell you why I can do this" to "watch me do this." From "I hope you understand my decision" to "I've made my decision." From "do you think this will work" to "I'll find out." You have a choice. You can spend your life seeking approval from people who will never give it, or you can build something so undeniable that approval becomes irrelevant. Insecure people explain. Confident people execute. And emotionally detached people, they don't even register the need to do either. They simply act, aligned with their internal compass, indifferent to external judgment. That's freedom.
You've learned to stop explaining. You've learned that your results are your real resume. Now we need to address the addiction that keeps most people trapped in emotional dependence. The desperate need for validation from people who don't even know you. Chapter 4. The Silent Cost of Seeking Validation.
Let me ask you a question. How many times today have you checked to see if someone liked your post, responded to your message, or acknowledged something you did? Be honest, because every single time you checked, every time you refreshed that feed, every time you looked to see who viewed your story, every time you waited for someone to comment, you were outsourcing your emotional stability to strangers. That's what validation seeking actually is. It's not harmless. It's not just being social. It's you handing control of your emotional state to people who don't even know you exist, and it's destroying you. Social media has turned validation seeking into an addiction. This isn't metaphor, it's neuroscience. When you get a like, when you get a comment, when you get a share, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurochemical that cocaine triggers, the same reward system that keeps addicts hooked. Likes are digital drugs. And just like any drug, you need more and more to feel the same high. One like used to be enough. Then you needed 10. Then 100. Now you're posting things specifically engineered for engagement, not because you actually care about them, but because you need that hit. You've become a dopamine junkie, and the algorithm is your dealer. Here's what's happening to you physiologically. Every time you post something, you're creating an expectation. Your brain is anticipating validation. It's sitting there, waiting for the reward. And when that reward comes, ping, someone liked it, Gumawer. You get a surge of dopamine. You feel good. You feel seen. You feel validated. But when that reward doesn't come, when you post something and nobody engages, your brain experiences that as rejection, as failure, and you feel terrible. Your mood crashes. Your self-worth plummets. All because strangers on the internet didn't press a button. Think about how insane that is. Your emotional state, your sense of worthiness, your confidence, your happiness is being determined by whether people you've never met clicked a heart icon. You've given them complete control over how you feel about yourself. That's the opposite of emotional detachment. That's emotional dependence, and it's killing your ability to build anything real. Emotional detachment means unplugging from that feedback loop. It means building self-approval from within, not collecting it from outside. It means your sense of worth is non-negotiable, regardless of who's paying attention. Let me tell you something that will free you. Nobody is watching as closely as you think. You're worried about what everyone thinks of your choices, your posts, your life. You're constructing this elaborate performance, trying to impress this imaginary audience. But here's the truth. That audience doesn't exist. The people you're trying to impress are too busy seeking validation themselves. They're too worried about their own image to analyze yours. They're not sitting around thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. Everyone is the main character in their own story. You're a side character at best. And most of the time, you're not in the story at all. They're too busy managing their own insecurities, their own fears, their own desperate need for approval. The spotlight you think is on you, it's in your head. That's the key. The moment you realize nobody's watching, not really, you become free to act, free to choose, free to build the life you actually want instead of the life you think will impress people. Detachment is realizing you're free to act without an audience. Think about all the things you haven't done because you were worried about what people would think, all the risks you didn't take, all the creative projects you abandoned, all the authentic parts of yourself you've hidden. Why? Because you were afraid of judgment from people who aren't even paying attention. Here's a practical exercise. Post something on social media, anything, and don't check it. Don't look at the likes. Don't read the comments. Don't track the views. Post it and walk away. Notice what happens inside you. You'll feel an itch, an urge, a compulsion to check. That's the addiction talking. That's your brain demanding its dopamine hit. Resist it. Let that post exist in the void. Don't measure its worth by engagement metrics. Let your worthiness stand independent of other people's reactions. If you can do that, if you can create without needing validation, you've just taken a massive step toward emotional freedom. Now let me tell you about the two types of validation, and why only one of them matters. External validation is rented. Internal validation is owned. External validation is when you feel good, because someone else told you that you're good. You posted something, people liked it. Now you feel worthy. You accomplished something, people praised you. Now you feel capable. You showed up, people noticed. Now you feel valuable. But here's the problem. You have to keep paying rent. You have to keep performing. You have to keep seeking approval. Because the moment that external validation stops, you collapse. You're only as confident as your last compliment. You're only as worthy as your last achievement that someone acknowledged. You're only as valuable as your most recent validation hit. That's not confidence, that's dependence. Internal validation is different. Internal validation is when your sense of worth comes from you, from your values, from your integrity, from the alignment between who you are and who you're becoming. Nobody has to notice. Nobody has to approve. Nobody has to validate. You know you're on the right path because you're living according to your standards, not theirs. That's the only kind of confidence that lasts. Because it can't be taken away. Someone can criticize you. Your internal validation stays intact. Someone can ignore you. Your internal validation doesn't waver. Someone can reject you. Your internal validation remains solid. True confidence comes from self-validation, and it's the only kind that can't be taken away. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in practice. Two people work on creative projects. Person A posts every update, every milestone, every piece of progress. They're constantly checking engagement, reading comments, adjusting their work based on what gets the most likes. Their motivation is directly tied to external response. When people engage, they feel inspired. When people don't, they feel discouraged. Person B creates in silence. They work on their project for months without posting a single update. They're not doing it for likes. They're not doing it for comments. They're doing it because the work itself matters to them. Their motivation is internal. It doesn't fluctuate based on other people's reactions because other people's reactions are irrelevant. Who do you think finishes their project? Who do you think creates something meaningful? Who do you think builds something that actually lasts? Person B, every single time. Because person A is addicted to the feedback. They're not creating, they're performing. And the moment the audience stops clapping, they stop creating. Person B is free, they're detached. They're creating from a place of intrinsic motivation, not external validation. That's the power of emotional detachment. You don't need their applause. You don't need their reassurance. You don't need their approval. You need your own. When you can sit in a room alone, no phone, no notifications, no external validation, and feel complete, that's when you've mastered emotional detachment. That's when you become unshakable. Because your worth isn't tied to whether someone double-tapped your photo. Your value isn't determined by whether someone left a comment. Your significance doesn't depend on whether anyone noticed. You are enough right now with zero validation from anyone. That's the truth you need to internalize. Here's your challenge for this week. Take a 48-hour break from seeking any form of validation. No checking likes, no fishing for compliments, no posting things to see how people react. Create something, do something, accomplish something, and keep it to yourself. Notice how hard that is. Notice the withdrawal symptoms. Notice how desperately you want to share, to show, to get that hit of external approval. Then notice something else. You're still you. Your worth didn't change. Your capability didn't diminish. Your value didn't decrease. All that changed was your access to external validation, and you survived just fine without it. You have a choice. You can continue to rent your confidence from other people, constantly performing, constantly seeking, constantly needing more, or you can own it. You can build it from within. You can become someone whose sense of self is so solid that external validation becomes irrelevant. It's not about never receiving validation. It's about not needing it. There's a massive difference between enjoying approval and depending on it.
You've learned to stop seeking validation from strangers. You've learned that true confidence is self-generated. Now we need to address the people who drain that confidence on a daily basis, the toxic relationships that keep you emotionally dependent. Chapter 5. How to detach from toxic people without guilt.
Here's something nobody wants to tell you, but you need to hear. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. Not your family, not your friends, not your partner, not anyone. I know that's hard to accept. You've been conditioned your entire life to believe that relationships, especially family relationships, are sacred, that you have to endure, that you have to forgive, that you have to keep showing up, no matter how much damage it causes you. But let me ask you something. Who benefits from that belief? Not you. The toxic people in your life, they benefit. Because guilt is the tool manipulative people use to keep you engaged.
After all I've done for you.
Family is everything.
Real friends don't give up. You're being selfish.
You're abandoning me.
These are emotional traps. And if you're still caught in them, you haven't detached yet. Emotional detachment means recognizing that your mental health is not negotiable. It's not up for debate. It's not something you sacrifice to make someone else comfortable. And anyone who makes you feel guilty for having boundaries is exactly why you need them. That's the key. The people who respect your boundaries don't make you feel guilty about them. They understand. They adjust. They support you. The people who violate your boundaries, they'll weaponize guilt. They'll twist your self-preservation into selfishness. They'll make you the villain in their story for refusing to let them drain you. And you need to be okay with that. Let me tell you about emotional vampires. These are the people who survive on your reaction. Drama seekers, chronic complainers, chaos creators, people who always have a crisis, people who always need something, people who make everything about them. They feed on engagement, your attention, your emotion, your energy, and they will take as much as you give them and then demand more. Emotional detachment means recognizing the pattern and starving them with indifference. The moment you stop reacting, stop defending, stop explaining, they lose interest. You're no longer a source of supply. There's nothing for them to extract from you. So they move on to someone else who'll give them what they need. Detachment isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to have a dramatic confrontation. You don't have to explain why you're distancing yourself. You just quietly exit. They call. You don't answer, or you keep it brief. They text. You respond with 1 or 2 words. They create drama. You don't engage. They try to bait you into an argument. You don't take the bait. You just become unavailable. Not hostile, not dramatic, just unavailable. That's emotional detachment in action. Now let me give you a specific technique that will change your life. It's called the gray rock method, and it's devastatingly effective. Here's how it works. You become so emotionally unreactive that you're uninteresting to manipulators. Think about a gray rock. It's boring. It doesn't react. It doesn't provide anything to engage with. It just sits there. That's what you become in the presence of toxic people. Be boring. Give short answers. Show no emotional peaks or valleys. No anger. No defensiveness. No excitement. No sadness. Just flat, neutral, uninteresting responses. When someone is trying to provoke you, trying to get a reaction, trying to start a fight, trying to pull you into their drama, you give them nothing. You never call me anymore. Yeah, I've been busy. Why are you being so distant? Just focused on work. You've changed. You don't care about this family. Okay. Notice what you're not doing? You're not defending. You're not explaining. You're not engaging with the emotional manipulation. You're just existing. Like a gray rock. When there's nothing to grab onto, nothing to exploit, nothing to extract, toxic people naturally drift away. They need fuel. You're not providing it. So they go find someone who will. That's the power of emotional detachment. This technique works everywhere. Abusive relationships, workplace conflicts, family drama, toxic friendships. Anywhere someone is trying to provoke you, control you, or manipulate you. You become invisible to predators because predators need a reaction. They need vulnerability. They need an opening. And you're not giving them one. Let me address the guilt because I know it's there. I know you're thinking, but what if they really need me? What if I'm being cruel? What if I'm the problem? Let me be very clear. If someone makes you feel worse every time you interact with them, you are not the problem. If you dread their calls, if you feel exhausted after seeing them, if they consistently violate your boundaries, if they make everything about them, if they never take responsibility, if they drain your energy and give nothing back, you are not obligated to maintain that relationship. I don't care if they're family. I don't care if you've been friends for 20 years. I don't care if they mean well. I don't care if they're going through a hard time. You have a choice. You can continue to sacrifice your mental health to make them comfortable, or you can protect yourself. And protecting yourself is not selfish. It's not cruel. It's not abandonment. It's survival. Here's what you need to understand about guilt. It's a learned response. You've been conditioned to feel guilty for having needs, for setting boundaries, for choosing yourself. That conditioning came from somewhere, usually from the very people who benefit from your guilt. Emotional detachment means unlearning that conditioning. It means recognizing that guilt is often manipulation disguised as morality. Real love doesn't weaponize guilt. Real friendship doesn't require you to sacrifice your well-being. Real family respects your boundaries. If someone is using guilt to control you, that's not love. That's manipulation, and you don't owe manipulators anything. Let me give you a practical framework for detaching from toxic people. Step 1. Identify the pattern. Write down how you feel after interacting with them. Drained, anxious, depressed, angry. That's your body telling you something's wrong. Listen to it. Step 2. Set clear boundaries. You don't have to explain them. You don't have to justify them. You just implement them. I'm not available to talk about that topic. I can't meet up right now. I need some space. Step 3. Enforce those boundaries. This is where most people fail. They set boundaries, then immediately violate them to avoid conflict. Don't do that. When someone crosses your boundary, you don't argue. You don't explain again. You just exit the conversation. Hang up. Leave. Stop responding. Step 4. Accept the guilt without letting it control you. You'll feel guilty. That's normal. Feel it. Acknowledge it. Then act according to your boundaries anyway. The guilt will pass. Your mental health won't recover if you keep sacrificing it. Step 5. Don't announce your detachment. You don't need to have a dramatic "I'm done with you" conversation. That just creates more drama. You just quietly become less available, less engaged, less reactive. That's emotional detachment. You don't need their permission to protect your peace. You don't need their understanding. You don't need their approval. You just need your boundaries and the discipline to enforce them. And yes, some people will be upset. Some people will call you selfish. Some people will try to make you feel guilty. Let them. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your mental health is. Remember, the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. The people who don't, they were never really for you in the first place. They were just using you. Emotional detachment means finally seeing that clearly and acting accordingly. Here's your action step for this week. Identify one person in your life who consistently drains you. Just one. Practice the gray rock method with them. Short answers. No emotional engagement, no explanation, just boring, neutral, unavailable. Notice what happens. Notice how they react when you stop feeding them. Notice how much lighter you feel when you stop carrying their emotional baggage. That's freedom.
You've learned to detach from toxic people without guilt. You've learned that protecting your peace is not negotiable. Now we need to build the daily practice that makes all of this possible, because emotional detachment isn't a one-time decision. It's a skill you train every single day. Chapter 6. Train your mind like a muscle.
Let me destroy a myth that's been holding you back. Emotional control is not a personality trait. You're not born with it or without it. It's not genetic. It's not some mystical quality that certain people have and you don't. It's a skill. And like any skill, you build it through deliberate daily practice. Nobody is born unshakable. That person you admire, the one who stays calm in chaos, who doesn't react to provocation, who seems completely in control of their emotions. They weren't born that way. They train that way. Every calm, controlled person you've ever encountered got that way through repetition, through practice, through showing up every single day and doing the work. Meditation, journaling, breath work, exposure to discomfort. These aren't optional wellness trends. They're not things you do when you feel like it. They're training protocols. Just like you wouldn't expect to bench press 300 pounds without ever training, you can't expect emotional mastery without practice. Your mind is a muscle. And right now, if you're emotionally reactive, if you're controlled by your feelings, if you can't detach, it's because that muscle is weak. But weak muscles can be strengthened. That's the key. You're not stuck. You're not broken. You're just untrained. And starting today, that changes. Let me give you the first training protocol. It's called the Daily Check-In, and it takes 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes that will transform your entire relationship with your emotions. Here's how it works. Before you check your phone, before you engage with the world, sit with yourself. I know what you do right now. Your alarm goes off. You immediately grab your phone. You check messages. You scroll social media. You jump into email. Within seconds of waking up, you've plugged into everyone else's agenda, everyone else's emotions, everyone else's priorities. Stop doing that. The first 5 minutes of your day belong to you, not to your boss, not to your friends, not to the algorithm. To you. Sit up, close your eyes if that helps, and ask yourself 3 questions. What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? What do I want to feel today? That's it. 3 questions. 5 minutes. What am I feeling? Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're already stressed about the day ahead. Name it. Label it. Don't judge it. Just identify it. Why am I feeling this? Maybe you're anxious because you have a difficult meeting. Maybe you're stressed because you have too much to do. Maybe you're feeling inadequate because you scrolled through social media last night and compared yourself to everyone. Understand the source. What do I want to feel today? This is the most important question because now you're setting an intention. I want to feel calm. I want to feel focused. I want to feel present. You're not demanding that you feel that way. You're not forcing it. You're just declaring your intention. This simple ritual creates awareness, and awareness is the foundation of control. You can't detach from emotions you don't even notice. Most people are hijacked by their feelings all day long and never even realize it. They're just reacting, operating on emotional autopilot. The daily check-in interrupts that autopilot. It creates a gap, a moment of consciousness, and in that gap, you have choice. That's not about perfection. It's about awareness. Some days you'll check in and realize you're feeling terrible. That's okay. You're not trying to manufacture positive emotions. You're just trying to notice what's there before it controls you. Do this every single morning for 30 days, just 5 minutes, before your phone, before anything else. Watch what happens to your emotional baseline. Now let me give you the second training protocol, controlled exposure. If you want to build physical strength, you lift progressively heavier weights. If you want to build emotional strength, you expose yourself to progressively more uncomfortable situations. Deliberately, most people spend their entire lives avoiding discomfort. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid rejection. They avoid conflict. They avoid anything that makes them feel bad. And what happens? Their emotional resilience atrophies. It weakens, until even small discomforts feel unbearable. Emotional detachment doesn't come from avoiding hard things. It comes from walking through them without being destroyed, and that only comes from practice. Here's what controlled exposure looks like in practice. Cold showers. Every morning, end your shower with 30 seconds of cold water. Pure cold, as cold as it gets. Your body will scream. Your mind will resist. But you stand there anyway. You breathe through it. You prove to yourself that you can endure discomfort without collapsing. That's emotional training. Difficult conversations. Stop avoiding them. You need to have that talk with your partner. Have it today. You need to address that issue with your coworker. Do it this week. Each time you face a difficult conversation, instead of avoiding it, you're building emotional courage. Public speaking. Join Toastmasters. Volunteer to present at work. Put yourself in situations where you're visible, where you might be judged, where you might fail. The anxiety you feel, that's the weight you're lifting. Each time you do it, you get stronger. Rejection practice. This one is powerful. Deliberately seek out small rejections. Ask for discounts you don't expect to get. Pitch ideas that might get shot down. Apply for opportunities you're not sure you're ready for. Desensitize yourself to no, because when rejection doesn't destroy you, you become unstoppable. Each time you face discomfort without collapsing, you're strengthening your nervous system. Your nervous system is trainable. Right now, it might be hypersensitive. Small stresses trigger massive reactions. But through controlled exposure, you teach it that discomfort is not danger, that anxiety is not death, that fear is not a command to retreat. You rewire it. You make it more resilient. You build emotional armor. That's the difference between someone who's controlled by their emotions and someone who controls them. It's not about natural ability. It's not about personality. It's about training. Let me give you a specific 30-day training plan. This is not optional. This is not if you feel like it. This is a protocol. Follow it exactly. Week 1, awareness. Daily check-in, 5 minutes every morning. Emotion labeling. Throughout the day, name your emotions as they arise. Evening reflection. 5 minutes before bed, review your emotional patterns. Week 2, breath control. Continue daily check-in. Add box breathing. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. Do this for 5 minutes daily. When you feel triggered during the day, take 3 box breaths before responding. Week 3, physical discomfort. Continue daily check-in and breath work. Add cold exposure, 30 to 60 seconds of cold water at the end of every shower. Notice your resistance. Notice that you survive anyway. Week 4, social discomfort. Continue all previous practices. Have one difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Seek one rejection. Ask for something you expect to be denied. Do one thing that makes you socially uncomfortable. By the end of 30 days, you will not be the same person. Your emotional baseline will have shifted. Your ability to sit with discomfort will have expanded. Your nervous system will be more regulated, but only if you actually do it. You have a choice. You can keep wishing you had more emotional control, or you can build it. You can keep being reactive, or you can train yourself to be responsive. You can keep avoiding discomfort, or you can deliberately expose yourself to it and grow stronger. It's not about talent. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. The most emotionally controlled people you know didn't start that way. They started weak, reactive, and controlled by their feelings, just like you. But they trained, they practiced, they showed up every single day and did the work. And now it's your turn. 5 minutes in the morning. Controlled exposure to discomfort. Consistent practice, that's all it takes. Not motivation, not inspiration, just repetition. Your mind is a muscle. Weak muscles can be strengthened, but only if you train them.
You've learned that emotional control is a trainable skill. You've learned the daily practices that build it. Now we need to address the mindset that will either accelerate your progress or sabotage it completely. Your attachment to specific outcomes. Chapter 7. The Art of Non-Attachment to Outcomes.
Here's a paradox that will change your life. The moment you become desperate for a specific result, you've already lost your power. Think about the last time you really needed something to work out. You needed to get that job. You needed that person to like you. You needed that deal to close. You needed that project to succeed. What happened? You probably choked. You overthought everything. You second-guessed yourself. You came across as anxious, desperate, needy. And it showed. People could sense it. They could smell the desperation on you like cheap cologne. Attachment to outcomes creates anxiety, fear, and reactive behavior. When you need something, when you're emotionally attached to a specific result, you're operating from scarcity, from lack, from fear. And fear makes you weak. It makes you compromise. It makes you act in ways that actively push away the thing you want. When you need the job, you interview terribly because you're too anxious to be yourself. When you need the relationship, you become clingy and lose all the attractive qualities that drew them to you in the first place. When you need the deal, you negotiate from weakness and end up accepting terrible terms. Need is poison. Detachment is power. Emotional detachment means doing your best and releasing the result. It means showing up fully, giving maximum effort, executing with precision, and then letting go of what happens next. That's the key. You control your actions. You don't control the outcome. And the moment you accept that, you become unstoppable. Here's the paradox. This mindset makes success more likely. When you're not desperate, when you're not needy, when you're operating from a place of I'm good either way, you perform better. You're more confident, you're more authentic, you're more creative, you're more persuasive. Why? Because you're operating from abundance, not scarcity. Abundance says, I want this, but I'll be fine without it. Scarcity says, I need this or I'm worthless. Which version of you do people want to hire? To date? To do business with? The abundant version. Every single time. Let me introduce you to Stoic philosophy. 2,000 years old and more relevant today than ever. The Stoics had a simple framework. Control what you can control and accept what you can't with grace. You control your effort, your attitude, your preparation, your execution, your integrity, your response. You don't control other people's decisions. You don't control market conditions. You don't control timing. You don't control luck. You don't control whether someone likes you or not. Most suffering comes from fighting against things outside your control. You applied for a job and didn't get it. You can't control their decision. You can spiral, you can catastrophize, you can take it personally, or you can accept it and move on to the next opportunity. You launched a product and it flopped. You can't control market response. You can wallow in failure, you can quit, or you can extract the lessons and build something better. You did everything right in a relationship and they still left. You can't control another person's choices. You can become bitter, you can close your heart, or you can grieve and eventually open yourself to someone new. Detachment is the practice of surrendering to reality while still taking massive action in your sphere of influence. Notice what this isn't. It's not passivity. It's not giving up. It's not nothing matters, so why try? It's the opposite. It's trying harder than ever, but only in the areas where your effort actually matters, where you have control, and releasing everything else. You prepare for the interview like your life depends on it. Then you walk in detached from whether you get the job. You train for the competition with obsessive dedication. Then you compete detached from whether you win. You build your business with relentless focus. Then you launch detached from how people respond. You give everything to what you can control. You surrender everything you can't. That's freedom. That's power. That's how you operate at your highest level without being destroyed by disappointment. Let me tell you what detachment from outcomes actually looks like, because most people misunderstand this completely. Detachment from outcomes doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about the process more than the prize. Athletes call this trusting the training. You've put in the hours. You've done the reps. You've prepared your body and mind. Now, when it's game time, you don't think about winning. You just execute. You trust that the preparation will carry you. When you're detached from the outcome, you enter flow state, that zone where time disappears, where everything clicks, where you perform at a level you didn't know you were capable of. You can't access flow state when you're anxious about results. You can't access it when you're desperate. You can't access it when you're attached. Flow requires surrender. It requires being completely present in the process without emotional interference. And here's the irony. When you detach from needing a specific outcome, that's usually when you get exactly what you wanted. Why? Because you're no longer in your own way. You're not overthinking. You're not second-guessing. You're not sabotaging yourself with anxiety. You're just executing, cleanly, efficiently, powerfully. Think about your best performances in anything, your best interview, your best date, your best presentation. What did they have in common? You probably weren't that attached to the outcome. Maybe you didn't think you had a chance, so you relaxed. Maybe you had other options, so you weren't desperate. Maybe you were just having fun and forgot to be nervous. That's the state you want to operate from all the time. Here's how you practice non-attachment in real life. Before any high-stakes situation, do this mental exercise. Imagine the worst-case scenario. Really visualize it. You don't get the job. The deal falls through. They reject you. Whatever you're afraid of, imagine it fully. Then ask yourself, if that happens, will I be okay? The answer is almost always yes. You'll be disappointed, you'll be frustrated, but you'll survive. You'll move forward. You'll find another opportunity. That realization that you'll be okay either way is what creates detachment. When you know you'll survive the worst case, you stop being controlled by fear of it. Now, before you walk into that situation, set an intention. I'm going to give my absolute best effort. I'm going to show up fully, and then I'm going to release the outcome. You don't control the result, you control the effort. During the situation, stay present. Don't think about whether you're winning. Don't calculate your chances. Don't imagine future scenarios. Just be completely absorbed in the current moment, in the execution. After the situation, let it go. Completely. Don't obsess over what you could have done differently. Don't replay it endlessly. You did what you did. Now you wait for the result without emotional attachment. You have a choice. You can spend your life desperately clinging to specific outcomes, making yourself anxious and weak in the process. Or you can detach. You can give everything to what you control and surrender what you don't. It's not about not caring. It's about caring so much that you refuse to let attachment to outcomes sabotage your performance. The Stoics knew this. The best athletes know this. The most successful entrepreneurs know this. Now you know it too. Control your effort. Release the outcome. That's the art of non-attachment. When you master this, something remarkable happens. You stop being at the mercy of results. Your emotional state doesn't fluctuate based on external validation. You become steady, consistent, unshakable, because your worth isn't determined by whether you got the job. Your value isn't determined by whether the deal closed. Your significance isn't determined by whether you won. You're already complete. The outcome doesn't change that. It's just information, data, feedback for the next iteration. That's emotional detachment at its highest level.
You've learned to detach from outcomes. You've learned to surrender what you can't control while maximizing what you can. Now, we need to address a misunderstanding that stops most people from ever attempting this. The fear that emotional detachment will make you cold, unfeeling, and inhuman. Chapter 8. Why feeling deeply makes you stronger, not weaker.
Let me address the biggest misconception about everything I've taught you so far. Emotional detachment is not emotional suppression. This is the most misunderstood concept in self-mastery. And if you get this wrong, everything else falls apart. Detachment is not about becoming cold. It's not about shutting down. It's not about pretending you don't feel anything. That's not strength. That's cowardice. Emotional detachment means feeling everything fully, then choosing your response consciously. That's the key. Feel everything. Choose your response. Suppression is different. Suppression is pushing feelings down, ignoring them, pretending they don't exist, stuffing them into a box and sitting on the lid, hoping they stay there. They won't. Suppressed emotions don't disappear. They accumulate, they build pressure, and eventually they explode, usually at the worst possible moment, in the most destructive way possible. That's weakness disguised as strength. You see this all the time. Someone appears completely calm, completely controlled, completely unbothered. Then one day, something small happens. A minor inconvenience, a tiny criticism, and they lose it completely. They rage, they break down, they self-destruct. Why? Because they weren't detached. They were suppressing. And suppression always has a breaking point. True power is feeling the anger, the fear, the hurt, and still acting with intention. You feel the rage when someone disrespects you. You acknowledge it, you sit with it, you let it move through your body. And then you choose how to respond based on who you want to be, not what you happen to feel in that moment. You're not a robot. You're not trying to be a robot. You're a human who refuses to be controlled by their humanity. There's a massive difference. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. The most emotionally intelligent people have the deepest feelings. They don't feel less than you. They feel more. They feel everything intensely, fully, completely. Empathy, intuition, passion, joy, grief, love, all of it. But they've learned not to be ruled by those feelings. That's the distinction. Feeling deeply is a strength, not a weakness. Empathy allows you to connect with people. Intuition gives you information your rational mind misses. Passion fuels your greatest work. The goal isn't to become cold. The goal is to become wise. Wise means you feel without drowning. You connect without losing yourself. You care deeply without being controlled. Emotional detachment creates the space between feeling and action, and in that space lives your freedom. Think about someone you know who's genuinely cold, genuinely emotionless. They're not powerful. They're isolated. They're disconnected. Nobody trusts them because there's nothing to connect to. That's not what we're building here. We're building someone who feels everything but responds to nothing automatically. Someone who can sit with grief without collapsing. Someone who can feel anger without attacking. Someone who can experience fear without retreating. That's strength. That's mastery. That's what emotional detachment actually looks like. Now let me give you a framework that will change how you relate to your emotions forever. Use your emotions as data, not directives. Your emotions are giving you information. They're signals. They're telling you something important, but they're not giving orders. Anger tells you a boundary was crossed. Someone violated your values. Someone disrespected you. Someone treated you unfairly. That's valuable information. But anger doesn't get to decide your response. Just because you're angry doesn't mean you must lash out. You can feel the anger, understand what it's telling you, and then choose a strategic response. Maybe you address the boundary violation calmly and directly. Maybe you remove yourself from the situation. Maybe you realize your boundary was unreasonable and you adjust it. You have a choice. The anger provided data. You use that data to make a conscious decision. Fear tells you something matters. You're afraid of the presentation because you care about your career. You're afraid of the conversation because you care about the relationship. You're afraid of failing because you care about succeeding. That's valuable information. But fear doesn't get to decide your response. Just because you're afraid doesn't mean you must retreat. You can feel the fear, understand what it's telling you, this matters to me, and then move forward anyway. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling fear and acting with intention anyway. Sadness tells you you've lost something valuable, a relationship, an opportunity, a version of yourself. The fact that you're sad means what you lost mattered. That's valuable information. But sadness doesn't get to decide your response. Just because you're sad doesn't mean you must shut down, isolate, or give up. You can feel the sadness, honor what was lost, and then choose how to move forward. These are signals, not commands. The mistake most people make is treating emotions as directives. I'm angry, so I must lash out. I'm afraid, so I must retreat. I'm sad, so I must collapse. I'm anxious, so I must avoid. No, that's emotional slavery. That's being controlled by chemical reactions in your nervous system. Emotional detachment means, I notice I'm angry. What is this anger telling me? What do I want to do about it based on my values, my goals, my long-term vision, not based on my immediate impulse? Feel it. Understand it. Then choose your move based on your values, not your nervous system. Here's a practical exercise. The next time you feel a strong emotion, try this. Step 1. Name it. I'm feeling anger. Not I am angry. You're not the emotion. You're the person experiencing the emotion. Step 2. Locate it. Where do you feel it in your body? Chest, stomach, throat? This creates awareness and keeps you from being overwhelmed. Step 3. Ask what it's telling you. What information is this anger giving me? What boundary was crossed? What value was violated? Step 4. Let it move through you. Don't suppress it. Don't act on it. Just let it exist. Breathe. Give it space. Emotions are temporary if you don't feed them with rumination or reaction. Step 5. Choose your response. Now that you understand what the emotion is telling you, what's the wise move? What aligns with who you want to be? This process takes practice. At first, you'll still react automatically sometimes. That's okay. You're building a new skill. The goal is progress, not perfection. But over time, this becomes automatic. You feel something intense, and instead of being hijacked by it, you observe it. You understand it. You use it. Then you choose your action. That's emotional intelligence. That's emotional mastery. That's the highest form of strength. Let me be very clear. I'm not asking you to become less emotional. I'm asking you to become more conscious of your emotions. Feel everything, the full spectrum, the joy, the grief, the rage, the love, the fear, all of it. That's what makes you human. That's what makes you capable of deep connection, meaningful work, and profound experiences. But don't let those feelings drive the car. You drive. The emotions are passengers. Important passengers. Passengers with valuable information. But passengers nonetheless. You're the driver, always. The people who change the world aren't emotionless. They're deeply emotional. They care intensely. They feel passionately. But they channel those emotions into productive action instead of destructive reaction. Martin Luther King Jr. felt rage at injustice. He channeled it into a movement. Nelson Mandela felt grief over his imprisonment. He used it to build resilience and vision. Every great artist feels deeply. That's where the art comes from. But they don't let those feelings prevent the work. Feeling deeply makes you stronger, not weaker, if you learn to feel without being controlled. That's what we're building. Not robots, not cold, disconnected people, but humans who feel everything and still choose their path with clarity and intention. You don't need permission to feel your emotions. Feel them all, fully, completely. Honor them. Thank them for the information they provide. Then act according to your wisdom, not your wounds.
You've learned that emotional detachment amplifies feeling rather than diminishing it. You've learned to use emotions as data instead of directives. Now we need to talk about the long game, how this practice compounds over time into unstoppable momentum. Chapter 9. The Long Game. Why detachment builds unstoppable momentum.
Most people are playing checkers. You're about to learn how to play chess. Checkers is reactive. It's short-term. It's about the immediate move, the immediate feeling, the immediate result. Chess is strategic. It's long-term. It's about position, patience, and the end game. Emotional detachment is how you win at chess while everyone else is still playing checkers. Here's what most people don't understand. Every emotional reaction derails you from your path. Someone criticizes your work. You react emotionally. You get defensive. You spiral. You waste 3 days being upset instead of improving. That's 3 days off your path. Something doesn't work the first time. You react emotionally. You doubt yourself. You pivot to something completely different before giving your original idea time to develop. That's starting over. That's losing momentum. A setback happens. You react emotionally. You catastrophize. You tell yourself you're not cut out for this. You quit. That's game over. Most people fail not because they lack talent. They fail because they can't stay consistent. They can't absorb hits and keep moving. Every emotional reaction is a detour, and enough detours mean you never reach your destination. Emotional detachment keeps you locked onto your target for years. That's the key. Not days, not weeks, years, decades, your entire life. While other people are being thrown off course by criticism, setbacks, and obstacles, you're steady. You're consistent. You're moving forward every single day, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what happens. You're stacking wins while they're processing feelings. Think about the most successful person in your field, the person who's been at the top for years. What do they all have in common? They stayed in the game. They absorbed criticism that would have destroyed most people. They faced failures that would have made most people quit. They dealt with obstacles that would have made most people pivot. But they didn't quit. They didn't pivot unnecessarily. They stayed the course. They had emotional detachment. That's not talent. That's not luck. That's psychological armor. And you can build it. Let me tell you about compound discipline. You already understand compound interest financially. A little money invested consistently over time becomes a fortune, not because of any single deposit, but because of the accumulation. Emotional control works the same way. Not reacting to that insult today seems small, insignificant even. Staying calm in that stressful meeting, nobody will remember it by next week. Not defending yourself when someone questions you feels like you're letting them win. But do it 100 times, do it 1,000 times, do it 10,000 times. And you've built something most people will never have, a reputation for being unshakable. You become the person others rely on in chaos. When everything's on fire, who do they call? Not the person who panics, not the person who gets emotional, not the person who adds to the drama. They call you because you're steady, because you're calm, because you don't make situations worse with your reactions. Opportunities flow to the unshakable. Leadership positions, high-stakes projects, important relationships, they all require someone who won't collapse under pressure, someone who won't be derailed by emotions, someone who stays locked on the target. That's compound discipline. Small acts of emotional control creating exponential results over time. Every time you pause instead of react, you're making a deposit. Every time you respond strategically instead of emotionally, you're making a deposit. Every time you stay focused despite how you feel, you're making a deposit. And those deposits compound. They build on each other. Until one day you look around and realize you've become someone completely different. Someone reliable, someone trusted, someone powerful. Not because of one heroic moment, because of 10,000 unremarkable moments where you chose discipline over emotion. Detachment isn't about one moment, it's about the trajectory of your entire life. Think about where you'll be in 5 years if you master this. Every day, you're absorbing hits without being knocked off course. Every day, you're making progress while others are distracted by drama. Every day, you're building while others are burning out. Where does that leave you in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Miles ahead. Not because you're more talented, because you stayed consistent, because you didn't let emotions derail you, because you played the long game while everyone else played for immediate gratification. Now let me show you why this matters more than any other skill you'll ever develop. The detached person always outlasts the reactive one. Always. In business, in relationships, in life. Detachment wins because it's sustainable. Reactive people burn out. They exhaust themselves with drama. They make enemies everywhere they go because they can't control their responses. They create chaos, and chaos is draining. They might have bursts of energy, bursts of success, but they can't maintain it. Eventually, they collapse. They flame out. They quit. They move on to the next thing because they couldn't handle the sustained pressure of this thing. You're different. You stay steady. You build slowly. You make decisions based on strategy, not emotion. You don't create unnecessary drama. You don't burn bridges. You don't exhaust yourself with reactions. You conserve energy. You focus it. You deploy it strategically instead of impulsively. And in the long run, 5 years, 10 years, 20, you're still standing while everyone else has flamed out. That's the power of detachment. Think about your industry, your field, your domain. Who's been there the longest? Who's survived every trend, every crash, every challenge? It's not the flashiest people. It's not the most talented people. It's the most consistent people, the ones who stayed calm, the ones who kept showing up, the ones who didn't let emotions dictate their decisions. Let me give you a practical vision exercise. Close your eyes and imagine 2 versions of your future. Version 1, you master emotional detachment. 5 years from now, you've stayed consistent on your path. You've absorbed criticism without quitting. You've faced failures without spiraling. You've dealt with setbacks without being derailed. You've built a reputation for being steady, reliable, unshakable. Opportunities have come to you because people trust you in high-pressure situations. You've compounded your discipline into exponential results. Where are you? What have you built? Who have you become? Version 2. You remain emotionally reactive. 5 years from now, you've quit 3 different ventures because criticism hurt too much. You've pivoted 7 times because setbacks made you doubt yourself. You've burned bridges because you couldn't control your reactions. You've exhausted yourself with drama. You're starting over again because you couldn't stay consistent long enough to see results. Where are you? What have you built? Who have you become? You have a choice. Right now. Today. Which version do you want to be? The choice isn't made once. It's made every single day. Every time you face criticism. Every time something goes wrong. Every time you're tempted to react emotionally. In those moments, you choose checkers or chess, short-term or long-term, reaction or detachment, and those choices compound. They determine everything. Here's what I want you to do this week. When you're tempted to quit, to pivot, to react, pause and ask yourself, is this emotion going to matter in 5 years? That insult someone just threw at you won't matter in 5 years. That setback you just experienced won't matter in 5 years. That criticism you just received won't matter in 5 years. But your consistency, that will matter in 5 years. Your ability to stay on path despite emotions, that will matter in 5 years. Your reputation for being unshakable, that will matter in 5 years. So make the choice that serves your 5-year self, not your right now feelings. That's playing chess. That's the long game. That's how you build unstoppable momentum. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's not about being cold. It's about recognizing that emotional reactions are expensive. They cost you time. They cost you focus. They cost you momentum. And you can't afford them anymore. Not if you're serious about winning. Not if you're serious about building something that lasts. Not if you're serious about becoming someone who doesn't just have success. Someone who sustains success. The reactive person gets lucky occasionally. The detached person builds empires.
You've learned that emotional detachment is your competitive advantage over time. You've learned that consistency beats talent when talent can't stay consistent. Now, we need to bring all of this together into a new way of operating, a fundamental shift in how you see yourself and your emotions. Chapter 10. Your new operating system. Living as the detached observer.
We've covered a lot of ground. You've learned the techniques. You've learned the practices. You've learned how to pause, how to respond, how to detach from outcomes and toxic people. Now we're going to go deeper, to the foundation, to the core shift that makes everything else possible. You need to shift your identity from someone who experiences emotions to someone who observes them. This is the final level of mastery, and it changes everything. Right now, when you feel anger, you probably think, I am angry. When you feel anxious, you think, I am anxious. When you feel depressed, you think, I am depressed. You're identifying with the emotion. You're becoming it. But here's the truth. You are not your emotions. You never were. You are the consciousness that experiences emotions. You are the awareness that watches thoughts and feelings arise and pass away. You are the space in which all of this happens. That's the shift. Think about it like this. When a storm passes through the sky doesn't become the storm. The sky remains the sky. The storm is temporary. It moves through. The sky is constant. You are the sky. Your emotions are the weather. There's anger passing through. There's anxiety moving in. There's excitement arising. But you, the core you, remain untouched. This observer perspective is the ultimate form of detachment, and it's where true freedom lives. When you operate from this perspective, emotions lose their power over you, not because you're suppressing them, not because you're ignoring them, but because you've stopped identifying with them. You can feel intense anger and simultaneously observe yourself feeling it. There's you, the consciousness, and there's the anger. Two separate things. The anger doesn't define you. It's just something happening in your experience right now. That's the key. Separation between the observer and the observed. Let me give you a mantra that will change your life if you use it. I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am the awareness behind them. Repeat this when you're triggered, when you're overwhelmed, when you're about to react. Say it silently to yourself. I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am the awareness behind them. Watch what happens. Instantly, there's space, distance, perspective. The emotion is still there. The thought is still there. But you've stopped being consumed by it. You've remembered who you actually are, the awareness, not the content of awareness. This is not abstract philosophy. This is practical psychology. This single mindset shift gives you control over the one thing that matters most, your response. Because when you're identified with the emotion, when you think you are the anger, you have to act on it. It's who you are. You have no choice. But when you're the observer, when you recognize that anger is just something passing through, you have complete freedom. You can let it pass. You can investigate it. You can choose how to respond. Or you can choose not to respond at all. You're no longer the storm. You're the sky the storm passes through. And storms always pass. Always. No emotion lasts forever if you don't feed it with rumination or reaction. Emotions are temporary weather patterns. They come, they go, they change. But you, the awareness, remain constant. Here's how to practice this in real time. The next time you feel something intense, instead of saying, I am angry, say, I notice anger arising. Instead of, I am anxious, say, I notice anxiety present. Do you feel the difference? One makes you the emotion, the other makes you the observer of the emotion. I notice fear, I notice frustration, I notice sadness. You're creating that crucial gap, that separation, that space where freedom lives. And in that space, you have choice, always. Now let me tell you something radical. Live as if you're already free. Because the moment you master emotional detachment, you are. Most people have this backwards. They think, once my circumstances change, once I achieve my goals, once people treat me better, then I'll be at peace. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll be free. That's a trap. That's waiting for permission from the world. Emotional detachment flips the script. You choose peace now. You choose clarity now. You choose freedom now. Regardless of conditions, regardless of chaos, regardless of what's happening around you. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need everything to work out. You choose your internal state independent of external conditions. That's power. That's freedom. That's the ultimate form of control. Not controlling the world, but controlling your relationship to the world. And here's the paradox. When you stop needing the world to be different, that's when it changes. When you're desperate for things to change, you reek of neediness. You make poor decisions. You accept terrible situations. You compromise yourself. And things stay stuck. But when you're already at peace, when you're already free internally, you operate differently. You make clear decisions. You set firm boundaries. You take strategic action. You become a force. And forces aren't stopped by feelings. Forces move through obstacles. Forces create change. Think about every powerful person you've ever encountered. What did they have in common? They didn't seem to need anything from you. They weren't desperate, they weren't needy, they were already complete. That's because they'd achieved internal freedom. They'd stopped waiting for external validation, external success, external peace. They'd claimed it internally first, and then the external followed. You can do this too, starting right now. You don't have to wait until you've achieved your goals. You don't have to wait until you've mastered everything in this book. You don't have to wait until your circumstances improve. Right now, in this moment, you can choose to operate as the observer. You can choose to see yourself as the awareness behind your thoughts and emotions. You can choose freedom. It's just a choice, a shift in perspective, a decision about who you are. Are you the person being tossed around by emotions, or are you the consciousness observing emotions pass through? You have a choice, always. Here's your new operating system, your new way of being. Morning. Before you do anything, sit for 5 minutes and connect with yourself as the observer. I'm the awareness. Thoughts and feelings will arise today. I will observe them. I will not be controlled by them. Throughout the day, when emotions arise, label them from the observer perspective. I notice anger, I notice fear, I notice excitement. Create that separation. Maintain that awareness. When triggered, use the mantra. I am not my thoughts, I am not my emotions. I am the awareness behind them. Let it create space. Let it remind you who you actually are. Evening, reflect on moments when you successfully observed rather than identified. Celebrate those wins. They're building your new identity. This is not a technique you use occasionally. This becomes who you are. You're no longer someone who tries to be emotionally detached. You're someone who fundamentally operates from the observer perspective. It's your default mode, your new normal, your upgraded operating system. And from that place, everything changes. Your relationships improve because you're not reactive. Your work improves because you're not derailed by emotions. Your decisions improve because they're based on clarity, not chaos. You become unshakable, not because nothing bothers you, but because you've stopped identifying with what bothers you. You've stopped being the emotion and started being the awareness. The emotion can be intense. Let it be intense. You're the sky. The storm can rage. It doesn't change what you are. This is the ultimate freedom. This is what all the practices have been building toward. This is the destination. And it's available to you right now, not someday, right now. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your circumstances. You are not your past. You are not your failures. You are not your successes. You are the awareness behind all of it, the consciousness observing all of it, the sky through which all weather passes. And that cannot be touched. That cannot be controlled. That cannot be taken away. That's who you are. That's who you've always been. You just forgot for a while. Everything in this book has been about helping you remember. You've remembered now. You know who you are. You know where your power lives. Now go live from that place. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but consistently, intentionally, as the observer, as the awareness, as someone who is fundamentally free regardless of what emotions arise, what thoughts appear, what circumstances emerge.
You are the sky. Everything else is just weather. And the weather always passes.